Harvard actually did this study that said you're going to be more approachable and people are going to be wanting to speak to you more if you do this by 80%.
Today's episode explores practical tips on how you can get better at communication in life, work, and beyond. You'll learn exercises, ideas, and prompts that you can immediately apply to your life starting today. Joining me is speaker, founder, and mother, Shereen Mitwalli. Let's start here. What do you think most people get wrong when it comes to communicating who they are?
You could be the juiciest peach, so you'll find someone who doesn't like peaches. Somebody actually said to me, Google Mother Teresa haters. That just proves to you every single one, no matter how successful they are, no matter how good they do, I'll find you their dislikers. I want everyone to like me. I want everyone to like this. It's impossible. The ones who gravitate towards you and know what you're doing will come.
I did a poll where more than 50% of people said they want to get better at understanding how to communicate, how to show up. What are some standout common things that people do that are really like a no-no?
They're entitled, they come unprepared, they make loads of excuses, and they blame. If I had to teach one key thing about this particular topic, it's
how much of this comes down to not just what you say, but how you say it?
It counts for 80% of whether people can actually listen. There's three components. You need to almost follow these three principles. You've got to break it down.
All right, balancers, welcome to another episode of The Balance Theory. I'm so excited today because our conversation is on topics and themes you guys love. I already know because every time we have videos and interviews on these topics, they perform so well. And this is a guest I know doesn't say yes to a lot of podcasts. So I'm extremely honored that she has chosen to come on, teach us and allow me to learn from her today. So welcoming Shereen Mitwalli to the podcast.
Thank you, Erika.
Thank you for being here.
It's an absolute pleasure to be here, honestly.
Likewise. So I know all the things you're doing right now, but what I'm really interested in is when you were younger, what did you want to be when you were growing up?
Oh my God. I do remember my dad telling me one time, you know what, you either need to be on TV or you need to or a lawyer and get paid to speak.
Wow.
Because I loved to talk. And I remember that always being instilled. Be paid to speak because you do it well. And so, but it wasn't really on my radar, to be honest, to be being a professional speaker. I think it was more so law that I was wanting to get into. But I'm really glad that I stuck to doing this. I studied banking and finance initially. I was a banker for many years, corporate banker. And then from being a corporate banker, I was able to speak on behalf of the bank. And then, of course, that's how I fell in love with communication. Found out that I was somewhat good at it, but I wanted to speak about not just finance. I wanted to broaden my horizons in terms of topics.
So at what point did you pivot and go, okay, less about the banking, finance and for the banks, more for myself and what I'm interested in?
Yeah, it's actually when I consciously made the decision to shift careers from finance and went into communications, and I had to restudy. I had to go into LA, Los Angeles. I had to research some of the best, schools. Who can I learn from in terms of especially improvisation, live improvisation? That's what public speaking is all about. So I went to New York Film Academy in Los Angeles and spent a year in the US, which I learned a lot. And I think that's how I fell in love with speaking even more so.
What kind of things do they teach you when it comes live improvisation? I suppose that is what we're doing here in an interview or when, you speak on stage a lot.
Exactly.
How do they teach you that? What do they teach you?
Putting you in various different scenarios and making sure that you can react. And that's what improvisation is. And it comes down to a lot of prep, actually. People think improvisation comes down to being natural. You either have it or you don't know. If you look at some of these comedians, majority of their jokes have been tested time and time again. And that's what they teach you. And I think the misconception out there is people think public speakers, it's either they're born with it or they're not. It's actually not. It comes with years of training, years of speaking. If you look at Martin Luther King and that amazing monologue, that he did, he was doing that while he was in prison. He was reenacting a lot of that content while he was doing various different speeches in churches many years before he actually did this monologue. So you got to think. Improvisation, there is a lot of planning involved in this. So when you are put into that position, you know exactly how you're going to respond.
Interesting. Yeah, I don't think that's something, even myself, it's a misconception, right, when it comes to improvising, because I suppose you make it look really natural when you're doing it.
I dare say if you look at majority of improvisation, that particular, let's just say, character, actor, comedian, presenter has been in that kind of position before, and they're able to pick it up, and then they're able to, of course, elaborate, but they've been in that position before, or they have mentioned those words before in some element.
In terms of what you've learned professionally, obviously communication's not limited just to these kind of settings, right? We're sitting in a podcast, or when you're hosting a stage, or sitting with some of the world's most known names. It's relevant for like a lot of interpersonal relationships as well. So of what you learnt when you were being trained in this skill, what do you think are some really practical takeaways or things you can maybe walk me and the audience through now that apply to personal situations?
Yeah, it's a great question. And you know what, I wouldn't say it was just limited to what I was taught. I think it's what you're taught also on the job. I mean, I've been doing this for 15 years now. And the beginning is what I was taught. And over time, it's what I have found worked, what works for me.
Yeah.
And in fact, I was, talking about advice, and that's why I love this word, not to use the word advice. I was interviewing Andre Agassi just a month ago, and he just hit it on the head. Again, every single interview that I conduct, I take so much away from it. And he's like, one of the questions I asked him was, what's his advice on X, Y, Z? And he's like, I don't like to give advice because I'm merely human. I can only tell you what worked for me.
Love that.
And I think that is something that I really took away. And I can only tell the next person, this is what worked for me for the past 15 years. This is what I was taught, for example, at a particular school. But over 15 years of doing this real life and event after event, interview after interview, you kind of get a really good idea in terms of what works. So I'll give you an idea of what works for me for the past 15 odd years. My biggest, I would say, what I can pass on to anybody out there is know how you're going to start and know how you're going to end.
Is this a conversation?
No, yeah, conversation, whether you're going on stage, whether you're about to go and do an interview. Like, for example, even now, when you started the podcast, you had a bit of an idea in terms of how you wanted to introduce it, and you have a bit of an idea about how you want to close it.
Yep.
And I think that is probably the fundamentals, for anybody that's starting either a presentation or a discussion, or even whether it's a Zoom chat, a work Zoom chat. How do you want it to start? How do you want it to end?
And do you think make this, sorry to cut you off, do you think make this like in terms of like an actual point to start and end, a sentence, like how specific do we need to be?
Even if it's just a couple of minutes before you start a conversation, to think about how do I want it to start? And how I want it to end. I want everyone to think about, if you're about to go into a car and you're about to drive, you're going to have to put a destination in. What happens when you don't? We're going to get lost, we're going to veer off, we're going to waffle, right? And that's where you need to have this, okay, this is how I'm going to start. I'm going to have to start the conversation with this. And it also helps people where if they're going to be reading, let's just say they're going to go on stage and they have this kind of a piece of paper with their speech. I always say, please, at least for the first 10 seconds, don't read, right? Try to have that personal experience, that connection between you and the audience, or you or your team. You've got to think public speaking isn't just you in front of a large crowd. We are public speaking right now. It's in front of, whether you're in front of 1 or 1,000, right? So having that idea in terms of that connection between your audience at the beginning, at least the first 10 seconds, address them, eye contact, let them know that you're there, you're adding value. Then if you need to refer to your notes, you certainly can, but at least for those first 10 seconds, connect. And that comes down to knowing how you want to start, like how you beautifully welcomed me, for example, and you knew because you came prepared. You had a little bit of an idea about me. You wanted to introduce it in the most natural way. You don't want to be reading. This has to come from here, from the heart. And that's why your audience loves you so much, because they can see how authentic you are. So again, if that's my biggest, I would say, takeaway from doing this for the past 15 years, is really truly connect. Because we're here, not because I'm not here for, I love what you're doing. I'm here for the audience to add value. Where whatever audience that you're speaking to, you're there for them. Whether that is in front of 1 or 1,000. And I always say this in my teaching, it's all about the audience. So if you're in this chair and you're speaking to, for example, your team members, which are your audience, or whether you're speaking in front of a mass crowd, whether it's a TED talk or, for example, a gathering, focus on them, connecting with them. You're not there for, for example, we know that you know the topic, but they don't know. So how can you break it down so simply that they could take away after they leave that discussion, they can go back to their partners or they can go back to their friends and go, I just left a really great speech. And they could pretty much remember at around 50% of what you mentioned, right? Or kind of summarize what you spoke about. And that's when you know you've done it really well.
That's cool because it's like it's forcing you to think about like your anchors, right? Start and finish.
Are you one of those people that forget to drink enough water every day? Or maybe you're a bit like me. You feel like you're drinking heaps of water, but you're not actually feeling hydrated. Lately, I've added one simple habit into my morning routine to make sure I'm staying hydrated amongst the busyness of each day. And it's very simply adding electrolytes to the first glass of water, purposely and intentionally before my morning coffee. The QR hydration packs are built on the same formula used in IV hydration therapy, which is such a game changer and makes a very noticeable difference in daily energy. Whether you're bombarded with busy days, moving constantly, or maybe you're even moving into drier or warmer weather, adding electrolytes with no sugar and no garbage is such a simple way you can ensure you're properly hydrating and supporting your energy throughout the day. Staying hydrated is not actually just about drinking more water as I thought. It's about your body actually using and absorbing it, and that's what Cure does. Clean ingredients, real science, and it actually tastes amazing. My favorite flavor right now is the watermelon. You can use the code BALANCETHEORY for 20% off at curehydration.com, or you can also find it on Amazon. Real ingredients for real hydration. Thank you so much to Cure Hydration for sponsoring today's episode. Now let's get back to the show.
How much of this comes down to not just what you say, but how you say it? And what I mean when I ask that question is the energy. Right? How do you prepare to energetically say things in a certain way? Because it's very different me saying, welcome to the show and like, welcome to the, putting energy. What's the prep or the thinking or the tools or the prompts that sort of go into the energy and way you say things?
Tonality. Energy is everything. How I start every event, it's either going to make or break. It's either going to want to make people listen or shut people, make them not interested in terms of what you're speaking about. And I would say that is really fundamental. It's actually more. It counts for 80% of whether people are going to actually listen. So that counts for a lot. So that means you need to get into the zone. One of the things that I always train on is whatever is happening in your life, maybe you've had a really bad day, you've had a flat tire, you've had an argument with somebody, you got to leave that at the door. I'm a big believer in not shortchanging your audience. And it's a huge concept. What does it mean to not shortchange your audience? They're giving you their time that they will not get again, right? So why would you want to shortchange them by giving them flat energy, right? That time they will never get back. So if you've got 5 minutes, 10 minutes or 30 minutes in front of an audience, and mind you, an audience of 100 people, so it's 30 minutes times 100, you want to make sure that you're adding value to them and breaking it down to them in such a way. So there's 3 components. Every speech, every talk, and which is what you're doing, every TED talk, every meeting needs to almost follow these 3 principles. You've got to break it down. It needs to be educational, meaning you need to teach them something new that they probably haven't heard of before. You need to have it inspiring. Inspiring meaning they can see that they could potentially do that. And the last aspect is entertaining. You need to keep it entertaining and lighthearted. Otherwise, they're going to switch off, right? People will go, oh, this is another boring video, and they'll just skip. And our attention spans right now, as you know, is shrinking.
Very short.
Right? So you need to keep it educational, give them something that they haven't actually learnt before, inspiring and entertaining. So along with your tonality, along with your energy, you need to make it interesting. You need to kind of create these hooks. And these videos now that you're probably hearing, if you're a content creator, you will see you got to create a hook. You got to create a hook. Yeah, because we need to capture somebody's attention with the content about what they're going to learn, with our energy, so we keep them listening to the value that they're going to receive. So absolutely, energy, tonality is everything. Leave the problems at the door. Realize that, first of all, don't shortchange your audience, right? That's time that they'll never get back, and truly give them that value.
Yeah, I love that, because I always say I'm asking my audience for more than money. I'm asking them for their time. And that's not something I ever, never take for granted. I'm always so grateful that people choose.
Most expensive commodity.
It is one's most expensive currency. For you personally, have you ever had an experience where you've had to leave personal things at the door because you've got commitments? And can you walk me through practically what that looks like for you. Do you like, how do you get in the zone? Do you do a meditation? Do you just sit with yourself? You look in the mirror?
I love
slap
that.
across the face?
I
what
love
do you
that
do?
because that's real talk.
Yeah,
right?
I want to know.
So much so. People kind of see me all the time. They'll be like, you're always so positive. You're always just so bubbly and you're smiley. Of course there's stuff going on. What about when my daughter is like at a 40-degree fever and I had to leave her at home and I can't cancel this commitment because I've already signed a contract, but yet my daughter is sick? What do you do, right? You have to make sure, of course, she's sorted and that she's got the right care and that they're keeping me updated, but you almost have to just separate the two. And it's so hard. I'm not going to underestimate how hard it is when you're going through your own trauma or issues and now you have to put on a face. I'm not saying to fake it, but you almost just need to park it.
It's like compartmentalizing.
Yeah, park it and then get to it. It's not going to go away. It's still going to be there for you. Whether it's a problem at home, whether it's a problem at work and you have to do this and you have to put on that brave face. You just have to park it, do what you need to do. And that's because on the basis that I can't shortchange my client and I can't shortchange my audience. I don't want to give them less of Shereen, right? They have hired me for that standard and I need to deliver at that standard or deliver beyond. And I think based on that, that's where my priorities lie. It's not going anywhere. I have to just park it. Once I'm finished, everything is sorted, then I'm rushing to get home to check on my baby or to deal with the other drama that I'm dealing with. So yeah, that happens a lot. So people see the front face of it that, yeah, wow, she's dressed well, she's composed, she's quite bubbly and smiling. But yeah, they don't know what's going on behind the scenes. Another one which I made reference to is getting in the zone. You know, everyone from Tony Robbins. I'm not sure if you know what Tony Robbins does behind the scenes to get in the zone. He has a trampoline backstage and he will jump on that trampoline for at least 60 seconds just to get his adrenaline up, right? For me, I can't kind of go to various events with the trampoline. For me, it's music. I'd be listening to music on the way to, for example, my engagements, my events, and get me in the mood. Eye of a Tiger, for example, is one of my regular tracks. You just got to build yourself up, right? Affirmations is another one that I also teach. If it's just a basic affirmation that you have, not to say it out loud, but almost just under your breath. So, for example, I got this. I'm Shereen. I'm one of the best presenters, best speakers. I got this. Let's show them what I'm made of. Like, it's just something so simple that you can say to yourself to get you in the zone.
Is this like, these are personal traits of yours, right? Personal skills, the way you can like pick yourself up and compartmentalize and get on with the job and then, you know, like just deal with competing priorities at the same time. Were you always this way or was this something you had to learn? Like to back yourself?
No, I had to learn that over time. It's something that you have to just build, you know, survival mechanisms, I think, over the past 15 years of being put into this situation. And I'm not saying every single day is like this. I mean, a lot of days are really great days, right? You've just made a big purchase, our home purchase, or we're about to go on holiday. So it's always quite positive. But real talk is that it's not always 100%, and you are going to go through, you know, drama, whether it's in your household or whether things are not going so well within the business as well. There is drama in the business, but yet you have to kind of quickly go and do a presenting engagement. You have to balance the two. But yeah, as I said, park, and this is something that, of course, everyone's going to go through.
Yeah.
Park the problem, deliver what you need to deliver, and then once you finish, get back to it.
Yep.
Yep.
Yep. We dive a little bit more into communication now. This is something my audience loves learning about, whether they're, you know, learning English or that English is their first language and they want to just learn how to communicate more efficiently in their personal and professional lives. Let's start here. What do you think most people get wrong when it comes to communicating who they are?
I would say it's trying to please everybody and trying to get everyone to like them. Right, that's a big thing. And it comes down, if I had to teach one key thing about this particular topic, it's the rule of thirds. It's not my rule of thirds, it's the rule of thirds. Have you heard of it? Mm-hmm. The rule of thirds is that out of all the people that you're going to meet along the way, a third of people are going to absolutely love you, like you, right? They're your followers, they're your diehard, and you know who they are, right? They're the ones that are always commenting, your family and your friends. And that's a third of people that absolutely sit in that category, right? They love you. The other third of people are going to be on the fence about you. They're not going to like you. They're not going to dislike you. They're probably not even paying attention. It's just oh yeah, whatever.
Indifferent.
She's okay, right? Neutral. And the last third of people, whether you like it or not, they're going to dislike you for whatever reason, right? Whether that is because of your accent or where you come from, or your, religious beliefs, or where you stand on certain topics, what color hair you have, how tall you are, whatever it is, they're going to dislike you, and you can't change that. And it's always the case, you could be the juiciest peach, but you'll find someone who doesn't like peaches, and that's okay. And I think what I find with people is they want to go into every presentation, every talk, and they want to say, and I hear this a lot from the people, the ones that I mentor, I want everyone to like me. I want everyone to like this, right? It's impossible. It's impossible because Richard Branson has his, I won't say haters, has the dislikers. Mother Teresa. Somebody actually said to me, Google Mother Teresa haters. She has a group of people. But that just proves to you every single one, no matter how successful they are, no matter how good they do, I'll find you their dislikers. Because whether it comes from a space of jealousy, they could do nothing to these people. Whether it comes from a space of jealousy or hearsay or whatever, you're going to have a group of people that don't like what you're doing. And I think that has to be said to be totally, and I always say, expect and accept. Expect that you will get those other 2/3, ones who are not interested and the other ones who don't like, right? Expect it and then accept it so that you're not going into everything going, I want 100% of people to absolutely love me. It's impossible. Even, there was this amazing quote that if you want everyone to love you, go and sell ice cream. Well, even that is not working because some people are not eating dairy and some people want gluten-free. So the poor ice cream man is having difficulties now, right? So it's just it's down to it's impossible to please everybody. So don't go into communicating thinking that you're going to have 100% of people that's going to absolutely love you. Expect that they won't and accept it.
It's like a misguided intention or goal for showing up, right?
Well, this is the thing. It's like, wherever I coach, for example, whether it's senior executives, royal family, ministers, they're like, I want everyone to really like this. And then that's when I'm like, let's set the expectation here, right? You're not going to ever get through to 100% of the people that's in the audience. Some people are also going through their own stuff. So they won't even be listening, right? So that's on the people that are on the fence. Some people will make a first impression, because you make a first impression in like the first 3 odd seconds, no, I don't really want to listen to her because she's a female or because they're male, whatever that might be, right? So you're going to have this whole notion of people that are just going to be in that third of dislikers. So that's where I say focus on the people that are listening, that are attentively nodding their head, and you look at those, and that's what gives you encouragement to do more.
This is a very practical way to start thinking about it and actually shifting where your energy is going.
Yeah.
Because again, like we were saying, energy is your biggest your time, and wasting that on the reality that someone's not going to like it is just
not really fighting and saying, well, I want to make sure everybody likes me, and trying so hard because you can see through that as well. Don't try so hard. Just be you, be authentically you. The ones who gravitate towards you and know what you're doing will come. And not to say, by the way, and on this whole rule of thirds, it's not to say that they always stay in their third, right? The ones that, for example, like you may one day go, no, I actually don't really like her anymore. And that's cool. Not an issue. Don't be so sensitive about it. And I've had ones who, let's just say, maybe didn't like, and it'll be like, you know what, actually I really do like her. And they can switch. And we've all seen these in relationships, even past relationships. I'm sure we have someone once upon a time that we truly, truly loved and liked, and now they're in the dislike third, or vice versa. We dislike them, but now we like them. It's not set in stone, but don't go out there seeking or trying so hard to say, well, I want to get these people that are in that third of dislikers, I'm going to convert them over. Don't. That's like a recipe for disaster, because you're going to be so exhausted by it. Just be you and do it really well.
Does your supplement schedule sound anything like this? Collagen here, protein there, a greens powder, probiotic, maybe you throw in a fish oil. It kind of starts feeling like a bit of a part-time job at some point, trying to keep track and align all the items morning and night. Not to mention the mix of tablets and powders, each needing their own way to be consumed. I'm having like 3 different drinks to get them all in. Well, I was, before I came across Momentum. Now, these guys are actually genius because of one thing. Simplicity is the point. One thing every morning, and it replaces over 20 plus supplements in one single scoop. But I really want to emphasize, guys, this is not a performance shake. This is about replacing the schedule of getting in all your core nutrients and supplements to impact and improve how you feel in the long run, in 10 years, 20 years, 30 years from now. Some of the goodness inside are NAD precursors, which support cellular energy, collagen and hyaluronic acid for joint, skin, and connective tissue, lion's mane for cognitive support, and grass-fed whey protein, plus digestive enzymes so it actually absorbs well. I've gone from spending 10 minutes preparing 3 different stations for me and my husband, so double that, to 1 Momentum shake each. Time is your most expensive currency, so I'm all for these little life hacks that save time and are so good for you. If you want to save time and actually simplify your supplement intake, go to momentumshake.com/balance theory today, and they'll send you a free welcome kit and a travel collection, which is a $70 value just to get you started. Live better and longer with Momentum.
How much of this do you think is actually knowing who you are to be able to be authentic?
Yeah, it's confidence. I think it plays a big role, because once you truly know your worth and your value, you really don't care about the third of dislikers. You're like, I know that I'm genuine in terms of what I'm doing, right? I'm not hurting anyone with what I'm doing. So if they want to dislike, being so confident to say, it's okay. All good. We all have them. And in Arabic, or I would say in Egyptian, we have this word called tuz. Tuz means who cares, right?
Like that, tuz.
Tuz. If the ones that, and by the way, a lot of these people who are in the dislike columns, they're usually silent, and they very rarely show themselves. They probably show themselves more so on social media from a fake account, etc. But when they do show themselves, I want everybody out there to realize, be like, that's a third that Shereen was talking about. Because it's almost like silent, they're invisible. I remember one guy that I coached, he actually turned around to me, he's like, Shereen, I don't think I have a third of people who don't like me. Everyone likes me. I'm like, really? I'll find you people who don't like you. But it's almost kind of in denial. You do have them, whether you like, and I hate to say it, but whether you like it or not, you do have them. So it's getting back down to not expect and accept. Accept that they're there. Don't focus too much on it. I wouldn't say, like you said, in terms of energy, don't waste your energy on that. Focus on the ones, a third, that are in your like and love, and giving them more content, for example, in terms of what they like, and focusing of giving your time and your energy to them.
I suppose that applies in like social settings too, right? Like don't try and be friends with everybody in the room. Focus on the people you're actually energetically drawn to or getting on with.
Erika, it applies to everything. It's something that I've been teaching my 7-year-old daughter at school, because it's something I had to actually sit her down and talk about the rule of thirds and talk to her about peaches, and you can be the juiciest peach, because when you think about every year she's going into different classes and she's got different friends, and she'll come back and go, I wasn't invited to this event, or I wasn't invited from this age. So you have to kind of sit them down, and I wish more parents would actually sit them down and give not a reality check, but a realistic approach in terms of relationships, even at such an early age, to say, well, look, you're not going to like everybody that's in the class, and not everyone's going to like you, and that is okay. And not forcing relationships, and not being upset when they're, for example, not being invited, realizing that the rule of thirds really explains it really nice, clearly. There are going to be some that you're going to really gel with and connect with, and that's your pack. The ones who are, you don't really care about, or they're okay, which is fine. And the ones who maybe that don't like you for whatever reason, and that's okay too, because you don't like everybody else. I said, do you like everyone else? And she's like, no, there's that person that maybe I don't like, and vice versa. So having that real talk, I think, with children very early on sets the expectation, especially when they get older and they realize, hey, this actually does exist. You're not going to enter every single room and you're going to like every single person in that room, and vice versa.
I think it's a very healthy way to help them understand not other people but themselves, right? It's like an inside-out approach as well.
Correct.
So I think that's awesome. I did a poll for my community before we came on the show understanding like where in their lives do they want to get better at communicating, because obviously there's people who are in business, there's just personal relationships, and then there's work, right? Like your work, you might be showing up for meetings and calls, and that was the category work, where more than 50% of people said they want to get better at understanding how to communicate, how to show up. So you obviously spoke a little bit before about, you know, how you start and end. This rule of thirds is really powerful. If we now zoom in on work specific, professionally, in terms of, okay, let's paint the scene. Somebody's in a role right now, and they would like to advance, whether it's monetary, whether it's their role. They want to be able to speak up and assert their worth, be a bit more confident. Like, where should they start? Is it starting with understanding themselves? Do they just need some tools on how to communicate? If you had a client that was like, I just want to, you know, be better at asserting myself in the workplace, how would you sort of start to help them navigate that situation?
Asserting themselves in the workplace, I would say definitely listening is always the best key. And I always, you know, say this, we've got 2 ears for a reason. Listen to the unspoken words, listen to body language that's in the room, even little things. And I remember coaching a CEO, in fact, and he would always tell me that his staff find him intimidating. Right. And that's because when he's focused, and you've got to always think, how do you look like when you're listening to your team? What's your facial expression like? You're usually like focused, right? And film yourself even listening and seeing how almost intimidating that is. So even a slight, and this is just, again, you're asking for tips, this whole slight smile with a small gap. And this is Harvard actually did this study that said you're going to be more approachable and people are going to be wanting to speak to you more if you do this by 80%. And it's just a small smile with a small tiny gap and nod your head. Exactly what you just did. Perfect. Exactly what you just did. Versus
like a resting face.
Yeah, exactly. Just a slight smile and be like nodding.
Okay.
That's telling the other person, I'm listening and please continue. That's that whole non-verbal communication. So it starts even with your non-verbal, right? So if and it's listening to them. So, and really being attentive and then approaching it saying, yeah, that's a great idea. Receiving that feedback. So it's not so much even what you have to say, it's how you're actually receiving the information from your team, which creates you to have that true leadership mindset. And I would say the second is understanding, and I think if you listen to my TED Talk, you would know my biggest philosophy around life, and that is living above the line. And what does it mean to live above the line? It's these leadership attributes, but the main point, without you guys watching 20 minutes of it, but if you do have time, go and watch it, it's accountability and responsibility. Taking accountability to what you bring to the table, and that is your energy and how you're responding. That is your non-verbal communication, how you're showing up to your team. Are you there for them? Are you telling them if there's anything that they need, please come to me, please come and speak to me. It's all coming down from your verbal and non-verbal communication as well. So taking utter responsibility for your team, taking utter accountability. And I remember there was this one time I was doing an interview with Richard Branson, and one of the things that he had to deal with, one of his businesses lost around $24 million, and he had to answer to stakeholders because he is the CEO of Virgin. Even though he had hired another manager to deal with this department, it was a whole new department, and there was 100-odd staff that was hired, he had to answer for the losses, right? Because he's the CEO. And it was interesting what he said when he was in front of the cameras, in front of the stakeholders. What did he say? And he had 2 choices. He could have either thrown the other manager under the bus and said, well, we hired this guy and we made the wrong decision, and he hired 100 staff members and they did the wrong thing. Or does he take full, utter responsibility? And he did the latter, which is true leadership qualities, right? He says, first words he said, I take full responsibility for the losses. And he goes and elaborates, and he's like, I promise the stakeholders I'll cover the losses and we're going to make it up. We've now hired a new team. We've got a new strategy. We've learned from our mistakes. So even if it's just taking 100% responsibility for the mistakes that happen within the team, to be like, what could I have done better? And that really shows to the team that straight away you're a leader, right? So it's not just about what's coming out of your mouth. It's non-verbal. It's taking responsibility. It's taking the accountability and making sure that the team knows that, yeah, we're all in this together and I'm the one that's going to fight for you guys at the top.
And I can definitely hear how that would translate so beautifully into relationships as well.
Oh, yeah.
Is that something you find naturally end up coaching people on, or is it more limited to like personal?
No, I mean,
professional.
Both, because this whole theory, this whole philosophy around living above the line, it's not just limited to professionally. It's everything you do in life. But you'll realize what happens to arguments when you actually do take accountability and say, actually, babe, that was my fault because I didn't tell you earlier. So there is no argument the moment that one person says, oh, that was completely my fault. Be like, no, babe, no, that was my actually fault. I should have actually asked you. So you realize where these arguments happen, that you just nip them in the bum straight away, especially even in the workplace. But if you have one, for example, if you have one staff member that says, okay, well, actually, it was my fault. I should have asked more questions. And the leader was like, and your team member, your manager was like, actually, I should have explained it better. Right. So you don't, it's not a blame culture anymore. And it's such a beautiful culture when each of us are like completely taking accountability. We're not focusing now on the actual problem. Now we're going to focus on what?
Solution.
Yeah. We straight away, let's stop wasting time on, who's to blame and pointing the finger. Then let's get down to, okay, what are we going to do about it? And those are the relationships, whether they're personal or whether they're professional, they're the ones that actually work when everyone is able just to take accountability. And that's even it's happening now with my daughter, actually. It's like, no, mum, that was my fault. And it's like, it's okay. It was my fault. I should have helped you. Because she's come to my TED Talk. She's come to my motivational speeches. She hears it all the time. Take accountability. It's not a weakness to take accountability and actually accept blame and say, you know what, that's my bad. I should have come out earlier. I should have left earlier. I should have been more organized. That was my bad. That's not a weakness. That's actually a sign of strength.
Yeah, I agree.
It takes a lot of confidence for someone to say, you know what, that was me. That was on me. That was my fault.
100%.
And you don't hear it often. And we need to hear it more.
I think as well as parents to be able to have the humility to say, look, I made a mistake. I've had things going on today. So children don't, I've interviewed a lot of therapists on the show before, and they talk about how children will make sense of situations. And so they will find a reason like, oh, I'm bad. I did the wrong thing. Yes. I didn't please. So to actually have that transparency, yes, of course, it's amazing in the professional world, but actually as a parent, I've learned recently like how powerful that can be too.
100%.
And to then teach that to your kids.
And you know what? And showing them the mistakes that you've done. So I've gone through this journey at the moment for the past odd year that I've been experimenting with sourdough bread. And my gosh, I've mucked up heaps. And being able to say, oh my God, I've made a mistake, or I didn't do it so well, but you know what, I'm going to try again. And my daughter is seeing this progress from where I've had these pancake loaves now to these beautiful loaves. She's seen the progression and she's seen that I didn't give up. She's seen the resilience and she's seen me take responsibility, be like, oh, I didn't add this or I didn't do this. Silly mummy, I did that, right? So she's okay then to make her mistakes and be like, okay, I'm going to try again.
She's got because
it's monkey see, monkey do, right?
So you speak about living above the line. I will link your TED Talk because I loved it. I watched it myself. If we're living below the line, right, and we go back to maybe some non-verbal or verbal things we do, what are some standout common things that people do that are really like a no-no in communication?
Non-planning.
Not being prepared.
Yeah, and that's really, again, not taking accountability. And it could be a lot of blame, right? Making excuses. So you got to look at the attributes of people who live below the line. What do they do? It's very that entitled, for example, mentality. I don't need to, right? Because it's just going to come natural, or I'm just going to wing it. The majority of the time, what people have been doing with communication, to be honest, is winging it, right? Like, oh yeah, I'm just going to wing it. I'm going to go up on stage, or they take their phone with a couple of notes on it and I'm just going to wing it. And that's the reason why it hasn't been effective. Because you have been winging it, because you didn't take the time to maybe learn. And I'm not saying go and get coached professionally. Go and watch a few videos online. It costs nothing, right? Or to practice. Or did you actually set up your phone and record it and do a few practice runs before you actually got there, right? I dare say you didn't. So a lot of it's winging it. A lot of it's making excuses as to, I don't have time. Or I don't have a stage to practice. Well, your living area, your living room can be the stage. Your phone can be your audience right now, and you can watch back and play it even for time. I do this just to see how long my speech is. For example, my TED Talk had to be 15 minutes. That's their cutoff. So I had to make sure, and my whole motivational speech is around 40 minutes. So I had to condense it with my storytelling, had to condense it to 15 minutes. So I practiced a few times, which stories am I actually going to tell that will accommodate that 15 minutes. And I had to do that with my phone because record, I can see the time frame, how long was I going to be. Living above the line, have to look at some of these attributes. They're entitled, they come unprepared, they make loads of excuses, and they blame. They blame everyone else but themselves. So if we had to translate this back into communication, it is just be prepared. Put in the time. I think with anything in life, the more you put in, the more you're going to get out. The more you practice. So, for example, if I say, okay, great, you know how you're going to start, know how you're going to end. And of course, the middle kind of comes together with what you're trying to explain, the story, let's just say, or your product or your service that you're trying to, for example, sell. The intro, if you start preparing how you want to start your intro and think about, and just take 10 minutes. Okay, this is how I'm going to start. And then work on how do you want to deliver it and film yourself doing that. And then when you watch it back, be like, oh, I feel a little bit flat. Okay, do it again until you're happy with it. And no one likes watching themselves, by the way, being recorded. Me also. But you have to. This is all the stuff that you have to force yourself to do. Watch it back and be like, how was that? Or actually, I don't want to start from the podium. I want to go to the middle of the stage. Or this is how I'm going to approach it, depending on your scenario, right? That will come out with the pre-prep, right? Going to the event earlier, going onto the stage, coming to this room, for example, earlier, going through your notes, going through your intro, how do you want to close it? That will come out and seeing what do you want to change. And it's really self-assessment. This is where you need to put your self-assessment hat on and be like, do I like it? And you're not going to always be 100% happy. I always say this, there's always 3 types of speeches. The one that you practiced, the one that you delivered, and the one that you wish you delivered, right? And that's okay. That goes for everybody, by the way, as well. So I would say what not to do is to not go under the line. Just be prepared, right? There's no excuses. Take 100% accountability. And I think it comes down to as well, Erika, is that whole philosophy around not shortchanging, right? You don't want to shortchange me because I've given you my time. I don't want to shortchange you nor your audience. So that's why I want to try to give you guys nuggets of information that I really kind of keep for my coaching when I coach the royal family members or ministers or my executives. But I'm giving you guys these amazing nuggets because I want to make sure it's valuable.
Well, I can confirm it's so far been so valuable. Like I've learned so many tips that even like the rule of thirds and little bits and pieces that, these things, they sometimes just flick this smaller switch, but they make such an impact. Yeah.
And it will stay with you. And I'll tell you, these elements of living above the line, taking accountability, or whether it's a rule of thirds or expect and accept, right? It will stay with you for forever. It's going to be very difficult to unlearn it.
100%. If you're still watching at this point, it's clear that we care about the same type of content. So make sure you hit that subscribe button because this channel is made for people just like you who value these types of conversations. And if this topic resonates, make sure you hit that like button so I know to keep on exploring it on the show. One thing a story you shared in your TED Talk is the story of JK Rowling. Now, I know we all know she's the author of Harry Potter.
Yeah.
I did not know her backstory until I heard your talk.
Yeah.
I'd love for you to quickly share her story, but what I'm interested to really unpack here is what you think actually made her as disciplined and persistent as what she was. Because I think we can draw out like some real practical lessons in how to do what she did.
Yeah, it was actually asked of her, because I've read her biography. I mean, it's quite large for me to kind of, tell her story. I had to read all the details. And I loved, I think the beautiful elements of storytelling, it's all about the details, right? And they asked her one time, why did you keep going? Because, I mean, for the ones who don't know, the JK Rowling story is that she was a single mum. She got married to a guy out of Portugal. She went to Portugal, kind of getting married to him. They had a baby. And then she left. She left the marriage and she went back to the UK with nothing. And people don't realize the struggles that she had. She was a single mum. She was in the UK. She couldn't get a job because she couldn't afford daycare. And she remembered she actually wrote the first 3 chapters of the Harry Potter story years before that. And she says, it was because I failed at everything that I came back to this. I didn't have anything to fall back on. And and anyone who is a mum knows the amount of times that you get a downtime when your baby's sleeping and you want to consume your time with something productive, right? So she went and committed her time in terms of finishing this book while Jessica, her daughter, was really little. She finishes the book and then she gives it to one of her friends and asks, is it good enough? And her friend, of course, is saying, yeah, it's really great. And then she starts sending it through to these publishers and she's just getting a no after no after no, right? And she gets multiple no's. And this was a time you got to appreciate well before the internet where you don't just like email and you press send. This was a time where you had to print out manuscripts and physically send a manuscript to publishers. And she was in the UK at the time. So she searched all the top publishers that were in the UK. Now, getting back to your question about, why was she so resilient? They asked her, and I'd love to get a chance to interview her. But she said, it's because I didn't have anything else to do. And she did truly believe, and I think belief is one of the biggest things. Confidence and belief has to be innate in you if you really want something. Mm-hmm. You need to believe that your content on this show is worthy, and that's why people should be watching it. I need to believe that, I'm a great speaker for people to want to listen. Or I'm a great coach, for example, and I can improve you from not wanting to speak at all and to want to speak to a large audience. And so I think the belief, she had this belief that this story actually had legs and that people would actually love to read it. And she had to get through to the one publisher that actually saw the beauty in it. And I think it's also asking the question, why? Why were the other publishers saying no? That's what I love to always ask, the why. Why were they saying no to her? She got like 12 odd no's. Why? And you have to think, okay, it makes sense why they were giving her a no. They're very commercial. Publishers are in the business of making money. We all know this. It's a 400-page book targeted to children. Which child is going to want to say, Mum, Dad, I want, the Harry Potter book, over the Atari at the time or the Barbie doll or whatever it might be. So publishers like, most likely no, right? There's not going to be the demand coming from the kids as they expected, but it changed. So, and it happened to be, again, how that she got that one yes from the one publisher was because of the daughter of the publisher. It was the daughter of the publisher that picked up the manuscript and started reading it and couldn't put it down. So her dad was like, what have you picked up there? She's like, I want to finish it. And it was because of her enthusiasm, it's because of her, love for this book that made him really read it and be like, oh, this is interesting. I like it. I like the story about the wizard. And that's who gave her the opportunity for the publishing, just for it was like a small run. It was 1,000 copies initially. And those 1,000 copies now are like gold. They go for $120,000 each, right? So, of course, 1,000 copies went out. It was super successful. And then, of course, the US market, got onto Harry Potter and the rest is history. And that's how she became richer than the Queen. So it came from a premise of belief. Yeah, she really believed in the story. But secondly, she says it, if I was successful at anything else, if my marriage was successful, she would have still been in Portugal, right? Not thinking, then life will get the better of you. You go back and you have to now create the house and maybe another kid comes along and she would have never probably even had time to finish off the book. So, and I love this premise that how everything happens for a reason. At the time, she was going through serial depression. She was clinically depressed because of everything that happened. She lost her mother at the same time. So she was in a really bad space. So she'd be like, why? Why is this happening to me? But then she was able to use that time to finish off the book. And it was that book that changed her life. So again, if we learn there's so many takeaways from these amazing stories. But if we take away anything from these stories, yes, be resilient. Don't accept no for an answer. Believe in what you're working on. But also trust. Trust that everything happens for a reason.
There's this beautiful saying, I think it's by Steve Jobs, you can never connect the dots looking forward, you can only connect them looking back. And it's so true. You look at anything, any relationship you thought worked out, but it didn't. Any job, business opportunity, house you live in, everything has led you to exactly where you are today. And that's why I say whenever I get asked, what's your biggest regret? Honestly, I have none, because it would have changed the course of where I am today.
I agree 100%.
And I think that's such a beautiful thing. A closing question from me. Someone who is sort of towing with this self-belief. Some days they feel like they've got it. They feel really good. They feel really confident. Other days they don't. What, I'm not going to say advice, from your experience, what would you kind of say to them to get to a point where, irrespective of what's going on around them, you know, because life is not perfect. It's not going to be only good things happen once you're confident and have self-belief. But what can you say to someone to be sitting in that energy and sort of be strong in who they are despite what's going on around them?
All right. I have a lot, right? So much. But I would say my biggest advice or my biggest take on for myself from the last, you know, I've been in business now for the last 25 odd years, is have grace, give yourself grace, and understand that no one has it figured out. No one. Don't look at me. I know you can be real and honest. Don't look at anybody. I mean, I asked Richard Branson this question, and even at all the times that he's been in business, it's like, I don't have it figured out. I was like, when are you going to retire? He's like, I don't know. At the moment, I'm really enjoying life, so I don't want to retire. No one's got it figured out, and everyone's going to question their ability. You're human, so give yourself some grace. And I would say instead of asking yourself all the things that you still need to do and you haven't done, I want you to look back and go, all the things that you have actually done and where you're at. And I think gratitude really plays a big role, right? So even in my worst of days, I'll always look back and go, oh, wow, I'm so grateful to be where I am right now. I live in an incredible city that encourages entrepreneurship, that there is just this incredible vibe and support. I'm able to travel around the world. I've seen so much. I've done so much. Yeah, there's still so much more I want to do, but that's okay. Have grace. Don't look at anybody else. And I think it starts from that. A lot of people will be anxious and be in that particular position and questioning themselves because they're comparing themselves. I think it starts with that. You've got to ask yourself, why am I feeling this way? Oh, because I just surfed and I went through social media and I saw my friends are doing this or this person's doing that. And you're playing the comparison game versus, am I in a better position to where I was, for example, last year? And even if the answer is even no, but am I on my way to the right? Am I on the right track? Right? But I think it's really, and now I'm turning 44 next month. And I get emotional, honestly, saying this, but I've just learned to give myself a lot of grace, right? And to appreciate where I am right now. And yes, I know that there is so much more to come, but I've done so much already. And I'm not going to, at this point, it's 2026, we're not comparing ourselves to anybody else anymore. I'm done comparing myself. I'm so now appreciative of where I am right now. And I think everybody else at this age, whatever age that you're at, just needs to be grateful, I think, from what you've experienced and stop the comparison game. Really, I would say that's my biggest takeaway. Yeah.
I think that's some beautiful words to leave our listeners with. Shereen, I want to thank you so much for your time today. I'm going to put links to where people can find you online, your TED Talk. I know you're working on some other projects at the moment, which are really exciting. So I'll make sure there's links to everything in the show notes.
We'll do a part 2.
100%. On that note, if anything has come up in this conversation that you guys feel deserves a bit more space, you want us to dive deeper in, questions you have for Shereen that you want us to explore in a part 2, drop a comment. I'll leave a pinned comment if you're watching on YouTube, and we'll definitely do that. Since you live in Dubai, we can do this anytime, and I would really, really love to get you back on.
It's been a pleasure, Erika, honestly.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate you.